A peaceful rural homeowner builds a secure shed for his firearms, only for the nosy HOA to label it a neighborhood threat and call in the authorities. But when the inspection goes wrong, his quirky guard llamas turn the tables, chasing the intruders straight into the sheriff's jeep in a chaotic frenzy that leaves everyone stunned. This is the wild tale of petty power plays, animal antics, and sweet, satisfying justice. If you're hooked on these HOA nightmare stories where entitled busybodies get their comeuppance, smash that like button right now, subscribe for more epic property drama, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this 3-chapter saga of suburban showdowns gone hilariously wrong. In the quiet outskirts of a sprawling suburban development called Willow Creek Estates, where manicured lawns met the untamed edges of rural America, lived a man named Elias Hawthorne. Elias was a retired veteran, a no-nonsense type who valued his privacy above all else. He'd purchased his 5-acre plot years before the HOA had sunk its claws into the neighborhood, back when the area was more farmland than cookie-cutter homes. His property backed onto a dense forest, and he'd built a sturdy shed at the far end, away from prying eyes. This wasn't just any shed. It was his gun shed, a reinforced structure where he stored his collection of hunting rifles, antique firearms, and ammunition. It was locked tighter than a bank vault, with concrete foundations, steel doors, and even a basic alarm system. Elias had permits for everything, having jumped through every legal hoop the state required. But the HOA, led by the iron-fisted Karen Whitaker, saw things differently. Karen was the self-appointed queen of Willow Creek, a woman in her mid-50s with a perm as tight as her grip on the community bylaws. She'd risen to HOA president through a combination of relentless volunteering and subtle intimidation, turning what was once a loose association into a regime of rules and fines. Her husband Bob was the compliant vice president, more interested in his golf swing than governance, but he nodded along to whatever she decreed. The trouble started innocently enough, or so it seemed. Elias had been minding his own business, tending to his small herd of llamas, yes, llamas. He'd acquired them a few years back after reading about their use as guard animals. Llamas, with their keen senses and protective instincts, were perfect for warding off coyotes and other predators that lurked in the woods. There were 4 of them: Luna, a sleek white female with a gentle demeanor until provoked; Rocco, the burly alpha male with a stare that could freeze water; and the twins, Miko and Nico, playful but fiercely loyal. They roamed his fenced pasture, spitting at intruders and humming warnings when something felt off. One crisp autumn morning, Elias noticed a drone buzzing over his property. It hovered suspiciously near the gun shed, dipping low enough to capture clear footage. He waved it off, but it persisted until he grabbed his air rifle and took a warning shot. Not at it, but close enough to send it scurrying back toward the main subdivision. That evening, a certified letter arrived from the HOA. It cited violations of aesthetic standards, claiming the shed was an eyesore that detracted from the neighborhood's uniformity. But buried in the fine print was something more sinister. A mention of potential safety hazards and a veiled threat to involve local authorities if not addressed. Elias chuckled at first, tossing the letter aside. He'd dealt with bureaucrats before. This was just another power trip. But Karen wasn't one to let things slide. She rallied her board members, a group of retirees with too much time on their hands, and they began a campaign of surveillance. Binoculars from back porches, drive-by photos, even anonymous tips to the county about unpermitted structures. Elias ignored it all, focusing instead on his routines: morning coffee on the porch, afternoon hikes with the llamas, and evenings cleaning his guns in the shed. Tensions escalated when Karen filed an official complaint with the sheriff's department, exaggerating the shed as a stockpile of weapons that posed a threat to public safety. She painted Elias as a reclusive hoarder, implying he was unstable, perhaps even dangerous. The sheriff, a pragmatic man named Deputy Harlan, knew better. He'd hunted with Elias in the past, but protocol demanded an investigation. Harlan called Elias to give him a heads up, but the damage was done. Rumors spread like wildfire through Willow Creek. Neighbors whispered about the gun nut on the edge of town, and Karen basked in the attention, hosting emergency meetings where she distributed flyers warning of the imminent danger. Elias, unfazed on the surface, began fortifying his defenses. He double-checked his permits, consulted a lawyer friend, and even installed trail cameras around the shed. The Llamas sensed his unease, becoming more vigilant, patrolling the fence line with ears perked and necks stretched high. One night, as Elias sat by his fire pit, he heard the telltale hum of the Llamas, a low, rumbling alarm. Peering into the darkness, he spotted flashlights bobbing near the shed. It was Karen and her entourage sneaking onto his property under cover of night to gather evidence. Elias watched from afar, amused rather than alarmed. The intruders fumbled with measuring tapes and cameras, oblivious to the approaching herd. Luna led the charge, her white coat ghostly in the moonlight, followed by Rocco's imposing form. The Llamas didn't attack outright. They herded, spitting and stomping, driving the group back toward the road. Karen shrieked, though no words were exchanged in the chaos, but the group scattered, dropping their tools in retreat. Elias laughed to himself, but he knew this was just the beginning. The next day, another letter arrived, this one demanding immediate demolition of the shed or face legal action. Elias responded with a polite but firm refusal, citing his grandfathered rights predating the HOA's formation. Karen, incensed, escalated her complaint to the state level, looping in code enforcement officers. The neighborhood divided. Some supported Elias's right to his land, others feared the threat Karen hyped. Petitions circulated, emails flew, and social media buzzed with "Save Willow Creek" hashtags. Elias remained stoic, but the constant harassment wore on him. He spent more time with the Llamas, finding solace in their uncomplicated loyalty. As winter approached, the first snow dusted the ground and the conflict simmered. Harlan, the deputy, paid a courtesy visit, assuring Elias that the shed was legal but advising caution. Elias nodded, but inside he prepared for the inevitable showdown. Little did he know, the real chaos was yet to unfold, as Karen plotted her next move with unyielding determination. The stage was set for a confrontation that would involve not just paperwork, but hooves, fur, and a dash of rural rebellion. As the winter chill deepened in Willow Creek Estates, the feud between Elias Hawthorne and the HOA intensified, transforming from petty annoyances into a full-blown battle of wills. Karen Whitaker, undeterred by the nocturnal llama encounter, redoubled her efforts, convinced that Elias's gun sheath represented a clear and present danger to the community's pristine image. She organized town hall meetings, where she presented slideshows of grainy photos, zooming in on the shed's reinforced doors, as if they concealed nuclear secrets. The board nodded in agreement, their faces etched with feigned concern, while a few dissenting voices were quickly silenced with reminders of potential property value dips. Elias, meanwhile, went about his days with quiet resolve. He reinforced the shed's perimeter with additional fencing, not for security, but to keep the llamas from wandering too far during their patrols. The animals had become his unwitting allies, their presence a natural deterrent to nosy visitors. Luna, the matriarch, often stood sentinel near the shed, her large eyes scanning the horizon for threats. Rocco, with his muscular build, would charge at shadows, his spits accurate and intimidating. The twins, Miko and Nico, added an element of unpredictability, darting about with youthful energy that could turn fierce in an instant. The escalation came swiftly. Karen, leveraging her connections, convinced the county to issue a formal inspection notice. It arrived via Sheriff's Deputy Harlan, who delivered it with an apologetic shrug. The document demanded access to the property for a safety assessment, scheduled for the following week. Elias complied, knowing resistance would only fuel Karen's narrative. He prepared meticulously, organizing his permits in a binder and ensuring the shed was spotless. On the day of the inspection, a convoy arrived. Karen and her board in their SUVs, followed by 2 code enforcement officers and Deputy Harlan in his Jeep. They parked at the edge of Elias's driveway, a show of force that drew curious onlookers from neighboring homes. Elias met them at the gate, his expression neutral. The group proceeded toward the shed, Karen leading with a clipboard in hand, jotting notes on every perceived infraction, the uneven gravel path, a stray weed in the fence line. The llamas grazing nearby lifted their heads in unison, their humming growing louder as the intruders approached. The inspection began tensely. The officers examined the shed's exterior, measuring dimensions and checking for compliance. Karen hovered, pointing out issues like the lack of decorative shutters to match the neighborhood aesthetic. Inside, Elias unlocked the doors, revealing neatly racked firearms and locked cabinets. The officers nodded approvingly at the safety measures, but Karen's face twisted in disapproval. She whispered to the officers about excessive armament, her voice carrying just enough to irk Elias. As the group exited the shed, the llamas had closed in, forming a loose circle around the visitors. Luna positioned herself between Karen and the path back, her neck arched in warning. Rocco stomped his feet, a low growl emanating from his throat. The twins flanked the sides, their ears pinned back. The officers chuckled at first, commenting on the unusual guards, but Karen panicked. She stepped backward, abruptly bumping into a board member who stumbled into Rocco's path. The llama reacted instinctively, charging forward with a spit that landed squarely on Karen's blouse. Chaos erupted. Karen flailed, her clipboard flying as she bolted toward the vehicles. The board members followed suit, their orderly retreat devolving into a mad dash. The llamas pursued, not aggressively but persistently, herding the group like wayward sheep. One officer tripped over a root, scrambling to his feet as Miko nipped at his heels, not biting but urging him onward. Harlan, ever the professional, tried to maintain composure, but even he quickened his pace as Nico blocked his way. The group piled into the sheriff's jeep, the closest vehicle, slamming doors just as Rocco headbutted the bumper with a resounding thud. Elias watched from the shed, arms crossed, a rare smile creeping across his face. The jeep's engine roared to life, tires spinning on the gravel as it sped away, leaving dust and discarded items in its wake. The llama stood triumphant, humming victoriously before returning to graze as if nothing had happened. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors who had witnessed the spectacle from afar shared videos on social media, capturing the hilarious pursuit. Llama justice trended locally, with memes depicting Karen as a cartoon villain fleeing fluffy Avengers. The inspection report, when it came, cleared Elias of any violations, noting the shed's compliance and even commending the eco-friendly guard animals. Karen, humiliated, called an emergency board meeting to regroup, but cracks appeared in her alliance. Some members questioned her tactics, whispering about overreach. Elias, buoyed by the turn of events, considered his next steps. He knew Karen wouldn't surrender easily. Her ego was too invested. As spring thaw approached, promising new growth and perhaps new conflicts, Elias fortified his resolve. The llamas, now local legends, continued their watch, unaware of the storm still brewing. The final reckoning loomed, where legal battles and community sentiment would decide the fate of Willow Creek's most notorious shed. With spring blooming in Willow Creek estates, the aftermath of the llama chase lingered like a bad hangover for the HOA, while Elias Hawthorne savored a momentary peace. The viral videos had turned public opinion sharply against Karen Whitaker, with online comments branding her a Karen-in-chief and praising the llamas as heroes of property rights. Elias received anonymous gifts, bags of llama feed left at his gate, and even a few neighbors stopped by to share laughs over the spectacle. But Karen, far from defeated, channeled her embarrassment into a vengeful crusade. She hired a lawyer specializing in HOA disputes, poring over bylaws and deeds to find any loophole that could force Elias's compliance. Her board, though wavering, rallied under her pressure, approving funds for legal fees. Petitions circulated demanding the removal of dangerous animals, twisting the chase into an assault narrative. Elias, anticipating this, consulted his own attorney, a sharp-minded veteran advocate who relished underdog fights. Together they uncovered that Elias's property was indeed grandfathered, exempt from many HOA rules due to its pre-development purchase. Armed with this, Elias filed a counter-complaint for harassment and trespassing, citing the nighttime intrusion and drone surveillance. The llamas, oblivious to the paperwork war, thrived in the warmer weather. Luna birthed a cria, a fluffy addition named Echo, who quickly learned the family trade of vigilance. Rocco mentored the young one, leading patrols that kept the property secure. Miko and Nico, ever playful, chased butterflies by day but snapped to attention at any unusual sound. The climax arrived with a county hearing, where both sides presented their cases. The courtroom buzzed with locals drawn by the notoriety. Elias sat calmly, his lawyer dismantling Karen's arguments point by point. Evidence included trail cam footage of the trespass, drone logs, and witness statements from neighbors, weary of HOA overreach. When the llama chase video was played, submitted as proof of the animal's non-violent nature, the room erupted in muffled laughter. The judge, a stern but fair woman, ruled in Elias's favor, upholding his exemptions and ordering the HOA to cease interference. Karen was fined for frivolous complaints and the board faced internal audits. Defeat shattered Karen's reign. She resigned in disgrace, moving to a condo complex far away. Bob, her husband, took over briefly but dissolved many draconian rules, ushering in a more relaxed era for Willow Creek. Elias returned home triumphant, greeted by his loyal herd. The gun shed stood unchanged, a symbol of resilience. He expanded the pasture, adding more llamas to the family, ensuring his haven remained protected. Years later, the story became legend, retold at barbecues and online forums. A cautionary tale of what happens when entitlement meets unyielding spirit and a herd of Spitfire guardians. The neighborhood flourished without the iron fist, proving that sometimes justice comes on four legs. If this HOA takedown had you laughing and cheering, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more wild property revenge stories, and turn on notifications so you're the first to catch the next one. Thanks for watching and see you in the next epic tale.